Welcome to the Screw the System channel. I'm Joe Barnes, and in today's video I'm going to explain why I haven't had the COVID vaccine. Before I go into this explanation, I first want to stress that I'm not advising you to do the same. I'm not giving you any opinion on what you should do, when it comes to taking the COVID vaccine or not taking it. I don't know your circumstances, your age, your health conditions, whatever they might be. And if my circumstances, age and health conditions were different, then maybe I would have had the vaccine already. So to make that clear, this is no attempt at all to sway your opinion or to advise you to do anything. I'm simply going to explain from my point of view. Now, there are 3 reasons why I haven't had the COVID vaccine. I'm going to break each one of them down, show you guys a little bit of research as well. So without further ado, let's move on to reason 1, which is my health. Now, what do I mean by that? Before I explain further about how I'm concerned for my health, I think it's worth me mentioning that I do recognize that for some people, coronavirus is very serious. However, for me, in my personal situation, I am not particularly scared of catching coronavirus. I had it, I think, back in March of 2020. I had a flatmate at the time who subsequently tested positive for the antibodies. So I was in contact with somebody every single day during the time they had coronavirus. We were sharing the same living space together. I also experienced the loss of my sense of taste and smell and had a very mild fever. So I think it's likely that I've had it already. And my experience, my personal experience, and I'm not saying this is everybody's experience, was that it was incredibly mild. I've had colds that were far worse than what I think was coronavirus. But that's just my experience. But since this video is about why I haven't chosen to take the vaccine, this experience is valid in me making my decision. I think if I look at it realistically, being somebody who's relatively young and very healthy, I'm not really under any threat of dying from coronavirus or even experience any long-term consequences. I still would rather not catch it, but I'm not living my life in fear of it. So I feel, with my health being at the moment what it is, why would I want to take a vaccine which I don't really know what's in it, which I don't trust where it's come from, and I'm going to get into this in a moment. And although I believe in balance, I probably wouldn't come to any harm from taking the vaccine, my stance at the moment is I'd rather just wait. I'd rather just wait and see what happens. Now, on the subject of side effects, I want to show you a quick video. Okay, so here we have a really sad example of a young woman who took the Pfizer jab, I think, and after that had some serious side effects from the vaccine. You see her here struggling to walk. Again, you see these shakes. I've seen it a few times now with different people. Seems to be one of the worst side effects of having the vaccine is these uncontrollable shakes. And she mentions her neurological system has been messed up. She's got to learn how to walk again as a result of taking this. And, you know, by the looks of her, she's only in her early 20s, maybe, probably very fit and healthy. And she says here, lower down, is it a sign? I need physio to learn to walk again, regain my muscle strength and coordination. In the meantime, the Zimmer frame and Luke holding me up. Luke must be her boyfriend. Is it a side effect of the Pfizer vaccine? Yes. So please make your own choices and do not be pressured to put something in your system that is still in clinical trials. So I think that's quite a powerful message. But the reason I chose to show it to you is because I want to make it available to people who are uncertain or unsure, or even are just blind in their faith in the vaccine, that this thing can potentially have side effects. I think even the government will admit that it can potentially have side effects. And the question is, for you, for me, because mainly this is about the reasons why I haven't chosen to have the vaccine, do I want to have the risk of some of those side effects? Now, if I'm being completely honest with you guys, I don't think that would end up happening to me. I think if I took the vaccine, more than likely, like my other family members, my brother and my mother and father, I'd have no side effects. Well, I wouldn't even feel bad. I would feel fine the next day and everything would be okay. I think that's the most likely outcome. However, being somebody who's completely healthy now, being somebody who's not afraid of catching coronavirus, and also being somebody who's of a skeptical mindset, who is well aware that this has been rushed through, this vaccine. And when when doctors say there are no long-term consequences, well, we haven't had long-term yet. Long-term is 2, 3, 4 years away from here. What impact is it going to have then? The thought concerns me slightly that it has been rushed through. And when they say there are no long-term consequences, we don't know what long-term is. We've only really dealt with short-term consequences. Now, the main thing that bothers me with the vaccine is that I simply don't trust the companies who are making it. I do not trust major pharmaceutical companies, and I will give you evidence, especially in the case of Pfizer, as to why you shouldn't trust them either. Now, this doesn't mean that the COVID vaccine is in some way contaminated or is in some way going to harm you. It just means that the company that has created it, in some cases, is actually a criminal organization. What do I mean by that? Well, let's share the video screen again. Okay, so let's take a quick look into Pfizer's history. And obviously there is Pfizer, there is Moderna, there's AstraZeneca, there's probably other companies who make them as well. But I've just chosen to focus on Pfizer as I'd come across this company in some of my reading, which I will show you in a moment. Anyway, here's the question here. What is Pfizer's criminal history? Pfizer has been a habitual offender, persistently engaging in illegal and corrupt marketing practices, bribing physicians and suppressing adverse trial results. Since 2002, the company and its subsidiaries have been assessed $3 billion in criminal convictions, civil penalties, and jury awards. And that is from the US National Library of Medicine, National Institutes of Health. And it goes on to explain further about some of the nefarious practices that Pfizer has been involved in. So this is a company that hundreds of millions, billions perhaps of people, hundreds of millions probably, are trusting their health towards. Now, as I said, this doesn't mean that every single drug or vaccine that Pfizer creates is in some way contaminated or dangerous. I'm sure many of them aren't. However, it does reveal that this company is willing to lie, is willing to do all kinds of illegal activities to make a profit. That's not all. If we switch here, this is an excellent book I've got this from. It's called Cracked by James Davies. This is about mental health drugs, but it's the same principle applies. Let me read it to you. Again, in 2010, an article showed in the British Medical Journal that the drug reboxetine, marketed as Edronax by the drug giant Pfizer, is no more effective at countering major depression than a placebo sugar pill. However, Pfizer withheld negative trials from publication. In fact, data on 74% of patients who the article surveyed were actually left unpublished. The authors concluded that if the excluded data had been included, the evidence would have showed that the risks of taking the drug far exceeded the benefits. Yet reboxetine has been approved for marketing in many European countries, including the UK and Germany. Okay, so different kind of drug, mental health drug. But again, and this is the real key I want you to focus on, Pfizer hid the negative trial results. That was criminal activity for which they got fined. Now, what does this relate to the vaccine? I'm not saying they've done the same with the vaccine. I wouldn't know. But it shows you that they're a company that are not beyond hiding negative results so that they can push their drug out there or their vaccine, that it can be sold and they can make a profit. That is not beneath them. They will do that. They have done that in the past. That is part of their history. So again, for me, if you're asking me, why haven't I taken the COVID vaccine? Well, I don't trust Pfizer at all by going on that. And I've got good reason not to trust them. And I'm sure it's not just Pfizer. If I dug into the histories of the other pharmaceutical companies, I'm sure they would reveal similar, although maybe not quite as sordid, pasts as Pfizer. On a whole, I don't trust big pharmaceutical companies. I don't trust governments, and I don't trust the media. And I've got plenty of reason and evidence to back up this lack of trust. But that wraps up the section on my health and why I feel personally, on balance at the moment, I'm simply going to wait a bit longer if I'm given permission to do so, which is something I'm going to cover in part 3 of this video, because I may not have permission. I may not be given that democratic decision over what goes inside of my body. It may be taken out of my hands ultimately, but if left to my own devices, I'd rather wait and see what the consequences are of this vaccine, even though I must stress that I believe if I took it now, I probably wouldn't be damaging my health in the short term or long term. I think I'd be okay, but if I've got a choice, I'd rather wait and see. So my second reason for not having the coronavirus vaccine is that I'm not afraid of catching coronavirus. I don't happen to think it is that deadly, especially not deadly for somebody in my situation. And I'm not the only person who thinks this way. Another very prominent person also shares my opinion, and that person is, love him or hate him, and personally I don't really like him at all, but I did find this very interesting when I read these messages. Boris Johnson's view, true view on coronavirus, not what he's going to say to the papers, not when he's going to go on BBC or give a special announcement or give an update. This is what he actually believes. And we know this is what he believes is because recently a former aide of his, Dominic Cummings, who he fell out with, they split ways acrimoniously, and Cummings is now going on record trying to smear Johnson as much as he possibly can. And he thought that this revealing the WhatsApp messages between them in, I think, November of last year was going to cause crushing damage to Johnson. In fact, for me personally, it made me respect Johnson a little bit more, even though, as I said, I'm not a fan of his. Anyway, what does it say in these messages? Johnson said, and this is all taken from newspaper articles, online newspaper. You can find this on there's tons of research on this on Google if you want to check this. Anyway, Johnson says, I must say I've been slightly rocked by some of the data on COVID fatalities. The median age is 82 to 81 for men, 85 for women. That is above life expectancy. So get COVID and live longer. So he's making a little joke there, a little facetious. I don't think he honestly means that. And then he goes on to say, hardly anyone under 60 goes into hospital, 4%, and of those, virtually all survive. And I no longer buy all of this NHS overwhelmed stuff. Folks, I think we may need to recalibrate. I mean, that is fascinating. What an insight there, because it's not what Johnson says when he's in front of the TV cameras. It's not what he says in his official statements. He plays the media line, and I think he knows why he can't come out and say something like he just did then in public, because to a degree, this is a media-driven virus. There is hysteria in the media, and has been for 20 months now, about the deadliness of this virus. As I mentioned, we're getting shown extreme cases of 25-year-olds, of 5-year-olds dying from this and being made to feel that that is normal. That is the standard, rather than being a 1 in a million situation. When in fact, what's really going on, as Johnson points out, is that the average rate of death from coronavirus in November of last year was actually higher than the life expectancy in this country, which reveals that it's mainly very elderly people that are dying from this virus, which again contributes to the reason why me, as myself, somebody who is relatively young, is not afraid of catching COVID-19. I don't want to catch it, but I'm not afraid of catching it. Anyway, that's not the only piece of official information out there which dampens the fire, dampens the hysteria of what we've been led to believe. As I've mentioned in previous reaction videos to the coronavirus, World Health Organization revealed that the death rate is only 0.6% from the coronavirus in August of last year. And also there are these comorbidity factors that I mentioned earlier. And if you take all of them out, if you look at truly only the healthy people who have no other health complaints at all, who are actually dying from coronavirus, the official numbers would be far, far smaller than they are. So this is why personally, I'm not afraid of the virus and why I haven't so far chosen to get the vaccine. But wait, there's one more factor at play here. If you have no fear for yourself, I'm not alone in being this way. I'm sure many people my age and younger feel the same. But then what gets thrown at them is this. Other people will say to them, well, do it for others. It's your civic duty. You should think about other people and stop the spread of coronavirus and forsake your own concerns and just have the vaccine. That's their argument. But now I'm going to reveal to you in my point number 3 why the concept of civic duty and having the vaccine is complete nonsense and something I don't believe in either.
Are you aware that in the UK, air pollution contributes to the death of 40,000 people every single year? Are you also aware that the livestock industry globally contributes to 14% of the greenhouse gas emissions that we experience? Yet where are the campaigns saying don't eat meat? Where are the campaigns saying don't drive on the road? This concept of civic duty and our responsibility to others is very, very selective. And it seems to me that people who say, get the vaccine, think about others, it's not really that they're selfless people. It's not really that they care about other people. It's because they're scared themselves. They're scared of the coronavirus spreading, and they probably want everything to return to normal, not realizing that it will never return to normal until you stop being afraid of this virus. But this idea of civic responsibility is absolutely being thrown around as the last sort of measure. Don't be a selfish person. Get the vaccine. That's the message that they're promoting. And perhaps it would be a bit more credible if we lived in societies that actually cared about each other. If there was some consistency with this idea of civic duty with other areas, as I mentioned before, maybe not driving cars or not eating meat, because there are many other things and contributing factors that kill people, possibly a lot worse than COVID-19 and more of a threat than COVID-19, but don't get the media attention of COVID-19, so therefore aren't so prevalent in people's minds. So how do I see this all playing out? I haven't had the vaccine so far. Will I at some point have the vaccine? Probably not of my own choice. And what I mean by that is I see a situation where governments are going to make it increasingly difficult to live without having the vaccine. There will come a point where you can't travel anywhere overseas without having had the vaccine. There might well come a point where you can't get a job without having the vaccine. And at that point, just to save myself from all of the hassle, I probably will get it. But it's a bit sad really that people find themselves in this situation and are being de facto forced into taking it. And make no mistake, these whole last year and a half and what's to come in the future is a move towards totalitarianism. Not in the sense that we are living in Nazi Germany, and I don't want to make it sound too dramatic, but this is, we're having our freedoms more and more restricted, and we're willingly allowing this to happen. A very scary precedent have been set over the last 20 months. Something that concerns me a lot more than the coronavirus, something that concerns me a lot more than the side effects of the vaccine, and that is that we have shown as a population that if you make us feel afraid enough, we will accept any kind of restrictions on our lives. And that's very worrying as we move into the future, not just for the coronavirus issue, but how many other issues might this also occur with? We've basically shown, and this has happened in countries throughout the world, not just here in the UK, we've shown that if we're made to feel scared enough, governments can impose all kinds of restrictions on us. Anyway, final thing I want to say,
is that you've got to do right by yourself. If you feel that you want to take the vaccine, if you feel that you're at risk for coronavirus, then by all means take it. Don't listen to my video and think that that you shouldn't have it because of some of the points I've raised. Your situation may be different to my situation. So this is in no way an attempt to sway people to resist having the vaccine. It's simply a perspective from somebody who, if left to their own devices, would rather not have the vaccine just yet. And I feel not enough people are putting this message forward. Not enough people are supporting the people who would rather avoid having the vaccine. In no way should we be coercing other people or trying to influence other people to take this. This is a personal decision. Respect everyone's personal decisions. Don't, if you're somebody who is anti the COVID vaccine, don't mock people who have the vaccines. Let them have it. Let them do what they want with their lives, and they should show the same respect for people who choose to, at the moment, or who for good, would rather not have the COVID vaccine. Can't we all just do that? That seems to be a simple solution that we can all follow. So with that being said, I'm going to wrap up this video. Thank you very much for watching. Do subscribe to the channel if you like this kind of content. There will be more videos of a similar nature, and I will see you hopefully in the next one.